get to that first interview now. So many of us spend way too much time on this thing, myself included. If you're looking to cut back, there is a new book out that you might consider reading to help you do so. I'm joined now via Zoom by Richard Simon, author of Unplug, How to Break Up with Your Phone and Reclaim Your Life. Richard, you direct website strategy for Georgetown Law. You've personally cut back on your phone use quite a bit, if not almost entirely. Thanks so much for joining us here on Evening Plus. How's it going?
Julia, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be on.
Okay, so this book, of course, as we've mentioned, it's all about unplugging, cutting down on that screen time. How did you get into writing this? What prompted you to compile all of these tips and strategies?
Yeah, this is deeply personal for me because I turned my smartphone off for an entire year. Ended up becoming one of the most transformative periods of my life. So transformative that I sought out other people. I talked to dozens of people who had done something similar in turning off their phones, including, as you mentioned, a Grand Rapids native. One of my favorite profiles of the book is someone originally from Grand Rapids and is a Notre Dame student who also turned off his smartphone and reset his life. So it was an incredibly empowering process and quite the journey.
And why do this? What prompted you in the first place, and what can the benefits be, to significantly cutting down on the phone use?
Absolutely. I was struggling so much as a young father with three kids, a husband, and like any average American. The average American spends more than 5 hours a day on their smartphone, and I was no exception. And I was losing out on so much in life. I was distracted with my kids, distracted with my wife. I wasn't fully focused with my career and my work. And then a big piece is that I wasn't investing in myself. I wasn't able to embrace solitude. All these things were mounting, and I just had enough. And there are so many self-help articles and books out there that espouse hacks, deleting social media, digital Sabbath, turning your phone to grayscale. And all those things are noble, but as most people have learned, the smartphone is far too addictive to try and hack. And I realized that I needed to turn it off as the first point before I could reset my relationship with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when some people, I know myself included here, turn your phone off, I know this is something you talk about in the book. It's like, oh my goodness, how do I keep in touch with work, my kids, my, spouse, what have you? It's a pretty daunting thing to think about for a lot of Americans, which sounds kind of sad, but is true. Walk me through a little bit of that, that's a big step to take.
Absolutely. Well, it is certainly daunting and it is challenging, but anytime you want to do a reset in life, and I think this certainly requires it, we're spending more than 75 full days a year, the average American on their phones, it's time we can't get back, so it requires truly a major reset. Through all of my interviews for the book, I found 4 breakup styles that emerged in terms of turning off your smartphone. One, which is what the Grand Rapids native did, Josh Haskell, who's a Notre Dame student, recently graduated. He switched to a basic phone. Turned off his smartphone, moved to a basic phone to recalibrate. I have a second approach in the book called Off by Default. This is the philosophy I embrace, where you turn your phone off and leave it off in its default state. The third is a very radical move, which is getting rid of your phone altogether, so no phone at all. And the fourth, which I think your listeners would very much respond well to, which is doing it with someone else. So turning your phone off with a loved one, whether it be a family member, a partner, or a dear friend. That's another option that can be done.
And a big part of your book is these success stories, and that's where this Grand Rapids native comes in. But I know you have more than a dozen examples in the book of people who have gone through this process and made it to the other side. Tell me a little bit about, including that, not just the information and the statistics, but people besides just you who have actually done this, I'm sure really helps your case and, how this can be helpful to people.
Yeah, I wasn't really quite sure what to expect when I started the interview process. And then all of a sudden, as I was conducting more and more interviews, I realized that this isn't just for knowledge workers. This is truly for everyone. On the more extreme side, I interviewed an on-call anesthesiologist at one of the top research hospitals in the country, Johns Hopkins University. I talked to a law partner. I talked to one of the top 10 chess players in the world, a professional baseball player, a software engineer, a graphic designer, and I found that really turning off your phone, regardless of where you are in the country, regardless of where you are in life with your occupation, is absolutely something that is possible.
And of course, for people who are hearing about this and thinking, man, this sounds pretty crazy, let's talk about the benefits. How did this change your life? How did this change the lives of the people who you interviewed in your book?
Yeah, there are four buckets really where I heard just was this the common theme. So one was work, being able to focus much more deeply without a smartphone in the equation. Two is relationships. Certainly for me, my wife, my kids, being a much more present person, and also with my friends, focusing more on high quality conversations versus texting because texting was removed from the equation without the phone. You're going to get hours of free time that you didn't have before taking a smartphone out of the mix. So, hobbies, investing in hobbies. And then the most common theme across all my interviews and in my experience too is investing in yourself. Anytime we feel an anxiety, anytime we feel stress or any sort of sadness in our life, we just go right to the constant companion model of the smartphone. Without a smartphone in the mix, all of a sudden you have to confront emotions. You're going to have to be comfortable with silence, embracing solitude, and all of a sudden investing in yourself like you've never done before. And that's one of the true highlights on this journey.
Oh, I love this. I'm inspired just by our conversation, and I already knew what we were going to talk about ahead of time. I know people can grab your book, again, Unplug, How to Break Up with Your Phone and Reclaim Your Life. There it is. Folks can get it on Amazon, but any other details you want to include or any other information about the book before I let you go?
Yeah, it's available at all major booksellers. As you said, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Target, Walmart, wherever you like to buy your books. And I appreciate being on the show. This is such a treat.
Hopefully we reached at least a couple of people who are going to think about this and really reclaim your life, reclaim their lives, as you've mentioned, and find all of that new purpose, just in daily life by putting the phone aside. Richard Simon, thanks so much for joining us here on Evening Plus.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.